record. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for AMAC's Legends and Leapers, our March Women's History Month edition. We will begin the program shortly, allowing our attendees into the room. Thank you.
And it was announced again that it's all women, so I really feel out of place now. So I'll make my remarks brief.
Once again, thank you all for joining us for AMAC's March Legends and Leapers, our Women's History Month edition. We're going to begin the program.
And this is when we need our theme music.
There you go.
We're going to turn the program over to Anthony Barnes, AMAC COO, for some welcome remarks. Anthony?
Hey everyone, welcome to AMAC's Legends and Leapers program. Our monthly conversation has grown month over month since we first started last year, and we are grateful for every speaker who has been willing to open up and have a candid conversations. Also grateful for you for joining us month after month. This monthly conversation between industry legends and emerging leaders reveals the commonalities and the differences in perspectives on the industry. Today is special in that we are closing out Women's History Month with a special Legends and Leapers edition. We spent this past month paying special tribute to women who have made a significant impact in our industry. And I want to encourage everyone to visit us on our social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, to view, like, and share our tributes. I also invite our members to renew their membership dues online, or new members, you are invited to join us on our website at www.amac-org.com. Today, we have an all-female panel with dynamic panelists and moderators. Our moderators for today are Lauryn Mangum Rhee and Inez Lampley. Lauryn is Director of Innovation and Business Development at Stellar Partners and is focused on business development, innovation, technology, and strategy at Stellar Partners. Inez Lampley is founder and CEO of Fresher LLC, which is an ACDBE focused on bringing healthy food concepts to airports. At this time, I will turn the program over to Lauryn and Inez. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. So I'm gonna put Anthony on the spot. So he jumps on the Zoom and he goes, "This is a different look for me. I'm the only male on the Zoom." And the first thing Angela says is like, now you know how we feel. So I thought that was a phenomenal way to get us jump started into this Women's History Month, Legends and Leapers. Guys, thank you all so much for joining us. Legends and Leapers is a phenomenal event that we absolutely love. Started by my former co-host, Ricky Smith. Don't worry, he's still employed by BWI, but not necessarily here for the time being. He only made part of the cut, he being a man, but not a woman, for this month. So he's a little salty right now, but that's fine. I'm super excited to have two phenomenal women on this Legends and Leapers as our legends. And so if you guys don't know, legends are our seasoned industry experts who have just climbed leaps and bounds within our aviation industry. And then leapers like myself, individuals that are newer to the game and looking forward to having these conversations, these dialogues with individuals like Jamie and like Angela. So I want to take the opportunity to just introduce my co-moderator for the afternoon or morning, depending on where you're tuning in at, Inez, and she's going to be able to introduce our legends for today.
Yes, so thank you, Lauryn. I'm so excited to co-moderate with you, and hello to everyone who is on the call. As we know, Women's History Month is March, and we are ending March with a bang today. And we all know that women have made history throughout history. And today we have the special privilege to acknowledge the achievements that women have made in aviation industry. So I'm honored to introduce our two legends, Angela Gittins and Jamie Rhee. You all have received their full bios, so I will just read a snippet of their bios so we can jump into our discussion. So I'll start with Angela Gittins. Angela served as Director General of Airport Council International, ACI World, from March 2008 to her retirement in June 2020. She was formerly airport CEO for Miami and Atlanta and deputy at San Francisco International Airport. In other previous roles, Gittins served as Vice President, Airport Business Services for HNTB Corporation, where she led the firm's practice in airport business and strategic planning. In addition, as Vice President at TBI Airport Management, she oversaw the transition to private ownership of London Luton Airport and managed operation contracts at several airports in the US and Canada. Gittins has served on numerous aviation industry boards and committees, including the FAA Management Advisory Committee, the FAA Research, Engineering, and Development Committee, the National Civic Aviation Review Commission, the Executive Committee of Transportation Research Board, the Airport Cooperative Research Program Oversight Committee, and the Board of Directors of JetBlue Airways. Since her retirement, she serves as the chair of the Board of Schiphol USA, which is the governing body for the operator of Terminal 4 at JFK Airport, and the Advisory Council of Lumen, a company developing an electric aircraft. Our next legend is Jamie Rhee. Chicago Department of Aviation Commissioner Jamie Rhee is a leader in the aviation community, overseeing operations at both O'Hare and Midway International Airports, among the largest and the most complex airport systems in the world. At the same time, Rhee maintains close ties to her local community and works as a dedicated advocate for children. In early 2021, Rhee was elected to the Board of Directors of Airport Council International North America, which works to strengthen the commercial aviation industry in the US and Canada and promote cooperation between airport governing bodies. Over the course of 28 years with the City of Chicago, Rhee has served multiple tours of duty at the airports. In fact, while in law school, she started working as a customer service foreign language assistant at O'Hare. In 2008, Rhee was named the city's chief procurement officer. Under her guidance, Chicago's procurement reform efforts earn national and international recognition as thousands of small and diverse owned businesses were certified and entered the talent pipeline. Rhee has overseen the purchases of more than $2 billion in goods and services, authored articles and publications on aviation safety and security, and increased the accessibility of municipal contracts to minority women, disabled, and veteran-owned business. Those are our two legends for today. Back to you, Lauryn.
Thank you. So, I mean, those bios just speak for themselves. You can always tell the difference between the legends and the leapers. Usually I say that because the legends are just, you're just like, wow, 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 with everything that you say. So I say all that to say that although you guys heard how long both of these ladies have been doing this, neither of them are over the age of 40. Just in case you were wondering, they started very, very young when they got into this industry. So and we read bios all the time, and not only that doesn't necessarily always like encompass what we've done, right? It's just reading almost a resume on paper. So I kind of want to just open up the floor a little bit to say exactly this. Did you guys plan on being where you are right now?
Well, number one, before I got my first job at the airport, at San Francisco Airport, I didn't know there was such a thing as airport management. I just thought that airlines ran the airport, which I think they think so also. And I got a call one day. I was not working that day because my mother and her cousin had come to visit me in San Francisco. I was working at the hospital, San Francisco General Hospital. I got a call from a colleague of mine who had gone to the airport to work at the airport, and they were looking for a director of business and finance, and he asked if he could put my name in the hat. And I almost said, well, no, what do I know about airports? I barely knew that the airport was a part of the city government. And then I remembered what someone had told me years before, to never turn down a job you haven't been offered. So I said, yeah, okay. And I turned back to my mother and her cousin. I said, she's not gonna believe what that was. And we had a nice laugh about it. And then we went on a tour. So that was my introduction to airport management. No, I didn't plan a thing.
And thank you, and thanks for having me today. This is really exciting. You know, I also didn't plan this career path. I grew up in a really small town of about 5,000 people, was raised by my grandparents. My dad was killed in Vietnam, so we lived with my grandparents until I was 17, and I left home at a very young age. Ended up going, I moved to Chicago briefly for a minute and then decided that the city was a little bit too big for me that young on my own. And I ended up getting my undergrad degree from Michigan State University, returned to Chicago. And I've always had an aptitude. I was always like and at least in my family, they couldn't understand where I had this urge to travel and languages. And I always had an aptitude for languages and studied French and Spanish. And ultimately my life took me to Japan, where I lived and studied Japanese. And somebody said to me one day, I don't even know what, I was working at Evanston Hospital. And somebody said, well, you speak a bunch of languages, you should go out and work at the airport. And I was like, what? The airport? And I literally walked into City Hall, went up to the board and looked at anything that I could apply for. And there was this job that looked like, honestly, like a spotlight on it. And it said, it was an airport information representative. The minimum requirement was 2 languages plus English. And I'm like, I got 3. Okay, let's do it. Literally had an interview and was called in, and that was in the early 90s. And I will tell you, it was my favorite job in the world. I ended up starting there and worked in several different positions, but and then going to law school at night while I was working during the day. And left that very reluctantly after 5 years at the airport, and I was a FOIA officer. I got into press and did all kinds of good things under the first woman commissioner, Mary Rose Loney at the time. She was the first woman in our history here at O'Hare and Midway of running the airports. So had a great role model there, and but left and went and did some other things. Came back and worked again as general counsel for O'Hare, the O'Hare modernization program, and under Rosie Andolino, who was my commissioner at the time, and Nuria Fernandez was here as well. So, I'm famous for saying there's something in the water here in Chicago, because we get women and we love them, and there's a lot of role models here for us. And then left, and like you said, I went to procurement, and then was asked by Mayor Emanuel to come back to aviation to serve as the commissioner in August of 2018. And, coming full circle and coming back was just a lifelong dream. I never left aviation. It was in my blood. So I didn't plan on it, but my gosh, am I just absolutely honored and thrilled that it turned out that way.
Wow, both of those are amazing stories. So question for you guys. Who, and Jamie, you said that, you had the pleasure, you were fortunate enough to work under the first woman commissioner, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Chicago, which sometimes I think that when you can see the vision, right? When you can see someone else that looks like you doing something, it allows you to almost say that aha moment of like, wait a minute, they look like me. This is something that I can possibly do too. Who was that individual for you coming up while you were kind of navigating your career path?
I will say Mary Rose had a profound impact on me. She's the first one that sent me to a conference, and I did not step foot on an airplane until I was in my 20s. I had no idea. I mean, I grew up on a farm. We never traveled. You drove wherever you went. And so I just never even dreamed that this world was possible. And then when I started working at O'Hare and got promoted, and was up in Mary Rose's office, firsthand witnessing, all of the women that were up there and that she was surrounded by. And she was such a promoter of women. And she sent me to my first conference. I just remember thinking like, wow, this is actually a career. Like, she exposed me to so much. And so I think it's so, and then all the way throughout my career, there have been so many women that I've been fortunate to work with that come from Chicago, and they're all out there. Rosie, Ginger, Nuria. There's just a ton of women, and of course Mayor Lightfoot, who my current mayor, I've known her for 15 years and actually worked with her in different capacities. So there is not a shortage of role models here in Chicago, and that is something that we take very seriously in giving back and making sure that we are building that pipeline for the next generation and folks that have typically been left out of the industry. It's shocking sometimes to look around and see, and you're absolutely right, Angela. It's that is the norm, and it was that it was a very male-dominated profession. It's individuals and it's a concerted effort to change that, and a lot of progress has been made, but there's still a lot more to do.
Angela, what about you? Who were those individuals for you that that helped mold you and really helped you see the vision as well?
Well, I think, you start with your parents, who basically, kind of set no ceilings, and encouraged me to go out there. So I always had that firm foundation. So my career philosophy has always been, what's the worst that could happen? Because I had that firm footing, so I wasn't afraid to take risks, to go into something that maybe I didn't know too much about or didn't really know how to do it. I remember years and years and years ago, before my 40s, talking to a hospital administrator, and I was saying to him, I could never do what you do because you have to have a public profile and you have to do public speaking, and I could never do anything like that. So I set the boundaries, but then would get thrust into doing something, and then found, oh well, okay, that worked out okay. I didn't die. And and that kept me going. One of my mentors within aviation was a white male from Indiana, with a military background, hardly a civil rights crusader, but he pushed me to be an executive. He hired me, number one, but he also pushed me to be an executive. I was a very good worker bee. I was a dedicated drone, but he's the one that got me to be an executive, and then that led to all of the other opportunities. And he actually pushed me to take the job in Atlanta.
That's great. I had a question for both of you, just talking about your career and looking back. What advice would you give your younger self when you were starting out in the aviation industry, knowing what you know today, and just giving us perspective for the leapers like Lauryn and I, what it was like back then?
Well, I would say take the risk. Aviation is a dynamic field, and dynamism and change is what creates opportunities, especially for people who are otherwise, who are typically left out. Because when there's, I always say, run to the fire. Because when there's crisis, when there's need for change and for transition, then the thought is more, who can help me? Who can help my organization get through this? Not, oh, this person is Black, this person is a female, this person is, doesn't fit the pattern. I'm not looking at that right now. I just need help. And you be that person that they can see can help you, and have that attitude. We don't get the easy jobs, just accept that, right? Maybe in the next generation, we'll get the easy jobs and we could be mediocre. But right now, we need the tough jobs to really show what we can do to show our value. And then they kind of forget that you're this, you're in the wrong, you're in the wrong category. All they know is that you're just someone that can get the job done.
I'm going to agree with her 110%. I laughed one of my mentors early on in aviation that I say, like, I always, when I do talk to him, I say, you're responsible for this big hot mess that I am, because I was a foreign language assistant, loving my job, doing what I was doing. And I remember it was the year that there was an American Airlines strike or something. And I was giving directions, and I had this little red coat on, and, and I just loved my job. And I remember I was doing this and that and the other, and this Dennis Cullerton was his name. He came up to me. He was Mary Rose's communications director, and he said, like, basically, who and what are you? And I'm like, reporting for duty. It's Jamie. He said, come see me Monday, which is how it led me into getting into press and all this other things, right? He said, have you ever heard of FOIA at the time? And I said, no, sir, but I'll learn it. And that, Angela, is absolutely right. I had no idea what it was, but I knew whatever it was, I wanted to be a part of it. Well, one of the most thankless jobs in any government agency is being the FOIA officer, like handing out all this good information. But it taught me everything. I learned operations, and I was excited to do it. And I was always that person where somebody said, hey, Jamie, would you mind? And I'm like, sure, yeah, what? And they're like, well, I haven't told you yet. I'm like, that's okay. What is it? Like, I don't care what it is. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to take a job that I know nothing about. It was the same way when Mayor Daley asked me to be the chief procurement officer. I was like, oh, good grief, no. Gosh, no. Like, I don't know. Are you? And literally, I spent 10 years in there and felt like I found a place that really was suited for me and the way that I think, in creating programs and being able to make impacts into the community by listening to people. And I love people. So that was never a, like, sure, come on in. If you're in the hall, stop by. Like, it just opening things up and making sure that people knew that it was a different day in government, and that there was a place for everyone that wanted to be a part of this the programs throughout the city, like, come on in. And so I think that taking that risk and looking for those mentors, and probably maybe spots that you would not otherwise think that would be possible, you have to open your mind a little bit and let it in.
And along with opening your mind, and it's to jump on what Jamie just said, is understanding the whole organization and taking advantage of any opportunity to understand the other parts of the organization. One, it builds your network, but it also kind of catapults you into a different category, so you don't get pigeonholed. Because women and minorities tend to get pigeonholed into, this person is good at this, and so that's what we're going to have them do for the rest of their lives. But to the extent that you volunteer for committees. You heard of some of the committees that I served on. Those were very valuable for me to learn more about the larger picture of aviation, not just my airport, not just my area. Got me exposed to a lot of other people, and got a lot of other people exposed to me. So that's the other piece of advice I would give, is to broaden your horizons and volunteer when you get a chance to learn a different part of your organization.
Both of those are phenomenal pieces of advice. I think that that exposure is huge, especially in our industry. I remember when I first got into the industry, one of my first conferences, someone says, yeah, this industry is kind of incestuous. And I was like, wait a minute, and not knowing and not understanding, right? And now I'm going on 7+ years in the industry, and I get it. And, you see people all the time, but really having that opportunity to work with other people outside of just your role or outside of just your organization truly is a phenomenal way to grow within our industry, because you get to learn so much and meet so many different people on a different level than just that high and by that you see at conferences. Right. So that advice is, I'm taking that and sprinting with it, let alone running. So thank you.
And something that Jamie and I both do is to embrace the new people as they come along, and to welcome them to this industry that no one likes to leave, because I think we get addicted to Jet A. But it's such a broad industry. It can attract from so many different disciplines. You could do almost anything and be in the aviation field. And both of us have had that pattern of welcoming others, in particularly women and particularly minorities.
Agreed 100%. I mean, I'm constantly trying to recruit and steal. Like I always say, I steal like a thief in the night. I see somebody that fits, like, come on in. There is so much to do here. And, you know, the sky's the limit, because this is really, our airports are places of opportunities, and whatever, they're like small cities in and of themselves. I mean, we have architects, we have engineers, we have concessionaires, the lifeblood, small businesses, we have construction opportunities, we have technology, you name it. Media, like there's so many, like I literally don't get enough sleep because my brain does not shut off on all of the ideas that I have that I want to do tomorrow. And it's, you know, trying to contain myself. That is, if there's a problem, I want to be part of that solution. And the other thing is, like, I always have hopefully prided myself on when somebody would come into my office and say, oh my gosh, we just found a closet full of big boxes and we don't know what's in them. I'm like, well, go grab them, bring them in here. Let's look. Like, I will do whatever I am asking anyone else to do. Because again, you broaden your horizons. No matter what it is, you're learning something new that you never know where it's going to take you. There's been a lot of jobs, and I said I've been kicked out of every department in Chicago, in the city, at least once. Aviation, I was kicked out twice before I came back for a third time. And every job that I had, whether I knew it or not, was preparing me for this job. So people will ask me, like, how in the world do you know about the landscaping contracts? And well, I was in procurement. Of course I do. So we can take that and let's learn. It was a really good thing that we did. So let's use it here. So it was just all those things that were in my head, and that, you know, I didn't even know were there for a reason, that all came full circle.
And probably saying yes to those opportunities, even the opportunities that maybe like someone else didn't want, or you didn't know what it was, but saying yes to it allowed you to broaden your horizon so much more and truly have a better understanding. To never in a million years, I'm sure you were like, oh, I want to be the commissioner. But now here you are, and every single yes has now paid off to get you to where you are, and just understanding.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So I want to jump gears, just shift gears. Sorry, clearly I don't drive a stick shift. I want to shift gears just a little bit. We just honored Equal Pay Day on the 24th, right? And so we know that this is something that we deal with across the world. This isn't just our country thing, but something that we deal with across the world as far as equal pay for women and minorities, but women. One, I want to know, what are you guys' take on equal pay? And also, what can we do, either as an organization or just as a whole, as a community, to really bridge the gap and get to a place where we can say, yes, everything is equal now?
Well, on the way to work this morning, I heard it, and it was heinous. It was some new study that had just come out. It was one of the world partners that did it. And as a result of the pandemic, it set women back in the pay. And it's a study that was just released today, and I have not read it yet. But essentially, it was something heinous that said it'll take 135 years for us to catch up where we were. And that we still were, you know, because so many women had to leave their jobs or adapt because of the pandemic with children and make decisions that, you know, were not necessarily fair for them to have to make, but they did, that it's going to take a long time to get that parity. And that is something that is just absolutely unacceptable. I mean, an honest day's pay is an honest day's pay, no matter who's earning it. It should be the same. There should be no differences. But, you know, the things that we do internally, you know, are just promoting women and making sure that we're fighting for those salaries and making sure that we're treating everyone the same, and looking at it as what work are people performing and not who's performing it.
I think in November or December, I don't remember which month it was, that every job that was lost through the pandemic was lost by a woman. It was 100% of the lost jobs were jobs held by women. So, you know, besides equal pay, it's, you know, access to the jobs in the first place, and a bit more equality in who does what. Because as Jamie said, you know, the women wind up taking, in this COVID situation, have taken on the burden of all the childcare, all the domestic elements. So they're the ones that were not able to work or had to step down in their positions. I think, I spent 10 years in Canada, and they have a pretty decent system in terms of supporting families. The fact that people have families and work, and they have a very good maternity system, such that the woman cannot lose her job over being pregnant, and gets up to a year. And I think they can even extend it a little bit more than that, but up to a year in maternity pay while their job is held safe for them. And it makes it so that women don't wind up falling behind because they have families. So maybe things like that, rather than, I remember the Equal Pay Amendment that was a way back when, that was really problematic because it was trying to set up equivalencies that, a woman that does this, should get the same pay as a man that does that. And I think for a lot of people, that was, a little bit too much government, trying to run the market. But two things. One, for the exact same job, there should be the same pay. And I think transparency would help on that, so that, particularly women would know what these jobs go for, because often women will settle for a salary that a man wouldn't settle for. So a level of transparency would help with respect to that. And then, as I say, having a decent set of rules and policies regarding maternity leave would be a big help for women. Big help, really, for society, because otherwise, we're going to fade away, right? The only way to have children is to have women.
Right. I totally agree with that. And to that point, just about all the sacrifices women make in general, what sacrifices have the both of you made, either professionally or personally, to get to where you are today, or maybe some sacrifices you had to make along the journey for your career?
Well, I didn't feel I was making sacrifices, but I never got married, never had children, so I was always free to relocate, and certainly in the airport world, that's one of the issues for many airport employees. If you leave the airport, you have to leave the city, except in Chicago and New York or some of the big cities that have multiple airports. So I didn't have that. I didn't have that situation, so I never felt I was making a sacrifice. But for many women, whether it's because of childcare or because they put their husband's career first, and I think that's changing. I see a lot more equality there, where the husband will trail the wife as well as the wife trailing the husband. So there are sacrifices at times, but I think you also have to, and I say this to women, and I say it to men, your career is long. So, taking a few years out, and the timing sometimes can be an issue, but taking a few years out, is just a fairly small percentage of your overall career. I think the real challenge is exactly when to do that, because you want to kind of get yourself established, and then you can kind of quiet down for a few years and then come back again. But if you don't, if you wait, then you may stay behind for quite some time.
Yeah, I guess I'd echo that. I didn't think I was making sacrifices, but I look back and I certainly did. I left home at 17, and was independent at 17. And, I've worked 3 jobs at one time, just to make sure that I knew I wanted to travel. So if I had to, pay my rent ahead and all that good stuff, I had to do it on my own. And so, it really taught me independence, and it taught me to value what I had. But it certainly was a sacrifice. I worked full time and went to law school at night, which, for 3.5, 4 years was it was a blur of a period of time, because I just had no ability to do much of anything other than go to work and go to school and study. But it paid off, and I knew it was an investment in my future. I am the first person in my family to graduate college. And still am, which is crazy. Most of my family are still very much into farming and things like that. And so I felt very blessed that, something inside of me was driving me to do more and get out there and learn as much as I could and take advantage of every bit of opportunity. I traveled abroad. I lived in Japan, and I did that all on my own because I wanted to keep broadening my base and of knowledge. Were there sacrifices? I mean, I didn't have any children of my own, but I'm blessed now that my husband and I are adopting, and could not be more thrilled to be parents and watch a very strong young woman. She's 6 and in kindergarten, and it's just a blessing. And I will say that those risks that you take are certainly worth it. They don't seem like it, and they do lead to sacrifices that you're going to have to make. I always didn't get to do what I wanted, and I watched my friends all go on spring break where I was like, I got to work. I mean, it just like, those are things that just were like, nope, I've got my eye on the long haul here. Like Angela said, your career is long. I will tell you that if somebody told me that I would still be in city government 28 years ago when I went into that city hall and applied for a job, I would have said they were crazy. But it was always just one more challenge that led me to say, like, I'm not done yet, and there's more I can do. And I see inequities. I see that the access to information and people being left out of contracting opportunities, for example, or, increasing awareness of programs. There's always one more thing to do. So I've always been like, I think I'm going to go. And they say, would you? And I go, okay, one more. All right, one more. And I'm blessed. And so I also, I feel like I have this huge debt of gratitude that I owe the city of Chicago, because I don't know where I would be. I don't know if I would have stayed in Chicago, or if I would have gone. I always imagined myself living abroad and practicing international law, which I get to do now. I get to do so much law that it's, it really does help me every day. I'm famous for saying law and policy, great. Policy, if we can change today. Law might take me a little longer, but what do we need to work on? Those are, that's empowering. To have that. So I always try to encourage people to, do as much education as you possibly can, because that does give you tools for later in life that, you will need for sure, make you more marketable.
No, both of those are absolutely spot on. Excuse me. So one of the things that we talked about, we had our emerging leaders, we have an event called Cocktails and Conversations, right? And this last one, we ended up having kind of a theme. And the theme was passion, purpose, profession. So my question for you guys, and the conversation was absolutely amazing. And just hearing from both of you, I've never really had the opportunity to have one-on-one time with you, but I'm learning so much. So I thank you profusely for just being so genuine and being so candid. And from the comments in this that we're getting in the chat, that's just who you two are as people, and everyone truly appreciates it. But what would you say your passion is, your purpose, and is that in line with your profession?
Well, I always wanted to be in something that I could see almost as a cause. Yes, it's a job, yes, it's a career, but is it meaningful? Does it matter? And aviation is certainly that. Being at an airport is certainly that. As Jamie said, you can affect so many lives. You just the employees. Never mind the passengers, your customers, but your ability to be a part of the community that's so important, and that your policies can make a difference. Your hiring practices, your contracting practices can make a difference in changing, or at least influencing change in your part of society, because of the impact, the economic impact of an airport.
I would agree. I mean, my passion has always been to help people. No matter what the problem is, I mean, I spent a year in the mayor's office, and it was funny because I was talking to somebody this morning that said, hey, it was an alderman had said, I've got a constituent that has a question. She's a little gnarly, can you help me out? And I'm like, it's my specialty. Send them to me. They're like, no, just give me somebody on your staff. I'm like, no, I got it. Like, I love helping people. So what is the problem and how can government help? We're supposed to be removing barriers. We're supposed to be finding out what's keeping you back and where you put something in place to get rid of it or to accelerate your growth, for whether you're a business owner or just a taxpayer. So I always, have that sense of I want to help someone, and that drives my purpose, right? Because then it's like, okay, now I know when I got into procurement and I realized, like, wow, there's so much here that we need to be doing to bring awareness, and these rules aren't fair and we need to change this. And I was very fortunate to serve 3 mayors, all of whom care deeply about making sure that our airports and our city is reflective of our 77 community areas. Everybody has the right to have access to the government. And so I used to get out there and always say, like, it's not a privilege to meet with your government. I work for you. What is it that I can do to help? And, anything that I have up here, I owe to the city of Chicago. So if somebody in the water department that's not being nice to you, let me know. I know somebody over there. That's what it is really information is power. And that always has driven me to be like, it's okay. How can I help you? Like, I always learn something along the way as well. I love learning. And so just those two things fit nicely into my personality. And I've been very fortunate to find a place to call home that lets me think like I do and lets me do the things I want to do. And I'll just say one thing. I was last night, I was with Mayor Lightfoot. She was celebrating women's history, and like, it literally, there was not a dry eye in the room. I mean, just celebrating the women that are in Chicago. And we, right now, all 3 of our city elected offices are held by women and women of color. I mean, that's amazing. Our city clerk, our city treasurer, and our mayor. Like, it is amazing looking around the room at her cabinet and the people. It was really a moment to celebrate. And I feel so fortunate to be where I am today. And in no small part to all the people that helped me, but also the city of Chicago itself.
I absolutely love that. So Jamie, you are in the process of adopting a absolutely beautiful, very vibrant and vivacious 6-year-old who we'll talk about your zoo a little bit later that you're also curating in your house. But your daughter, for those that don't know, is a young Black woman. She is a little girl of color. And hearing what you're talking about and hearing the people that you're around, I know, we try so hard, and I know my dad didn't do as good of a job, but my mom tried very hard to allow me to just be free, right? Figure out what I want to do, etc. My dad was like, where I see you. You're going to go to law school, et cetera, et cetera. But how are you taking your daughter under your wing? Are you showing her different aspects of life, showing her, again, being able to see that vision, people that look like her, that are doing phenomenal things? What does that look like in this road, as far as motherhood is concerned, and you raising your daughter?
It is amazing. And I remember, like, when one of the first events that we had out here at the airport, we were kicking off the last contract for our extension of our runways on the last runway extension 9 right. And Mayor Lightfoot came out, and I had Giselle with me, so from that day, they met each other. Now Giselle tells me, well, you tell Mayor Lightfoot. I said, and I just love, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. We're kind of the opposite. My husband, she's got him wrapped around her finger completely. And I am the one that's kind of like, no, we need to have some navigation here. But exposing her, every time she sees an airplane, she goes, that's mommy's airplane. And I'm like, well, not quite, but we'll give him something to land on. But as a 6-year-old, what an amazing world to be exploring right now, and all of the things that are possible for her. And you said it at the beginning, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So that is my mission. Is she's going to be a multilingualist. She's going to go to law school, med school. I'm going to have her an astrophysicist. I've got all kinds of plans for her. Now, we'll see what she wants to end up doing, because as you said, we got a small zoo going in my house. She may end up being a veterinarian. That's okay too. I want her to explore. We've had her so far already, like in the last year, in gymnastics. I mean, with COVID, obviously it's more difficult, but we are exposing her to kickboxing and gymnastics, and she's doing baseball. She's got all kinds of different crafts, and we took her to art school. Like, I want to see what it is. Like, where is it that you're going to find that? The next is instruments. She wants to play the drums. Oh. Okay. We have to build a separate wing of the house for that. But I want to make sure that you expose as much as you possibly can, because again, starting that young at 6, I didn't find out till I was in my 20s that airports even existed as a possible profession, or what college was when I was 18. I want her to know now, and we talk about these things with her, and she's very smart little girl. We're blessed.
Oh. I'm gonna just kind of put everyone's business out there. So we were doing our pre-call, and Giselle jumps on the call, and she took it over. I mean, we stopped talking about anything we were talking about. It was the Giselle show, and I mean, she's so intelligent at 6, so eloquent, so well spoken. I mean, we knew what she was thinking, and she was telling us all about the birds that you guys are going to be getting soon.
Oh, please.
The squirrels that
the cats and birds get along, but like well, and also, like, what is amazing to me is I have a 14-year-old nephew too, that the information that they are able to absorb with technology, right? Like, it is amazing. She probably recall I didn't realize my camera wasn't up, and she came in and said, "Mommy, like, here you go." Oh, like, okay, got it. So yeah, there's the sky it's just endless, like the possible opportunities. So I'm very excited, blessed.
And it's so exciting to see that as well. Yeah. When you were trying to figure out your camera, and she goes, "It's this button down here." Voila! You gotta love this new generation in technology.
Amen. Amen.
I love that, Jamie, and it just made me think of qualities that you guys have had. Maybe it took you longer to acquire throughout your career that you might wish as a 6-year-old, or maybe someone like me at 31 that you wish that you had in your career. So I just wanted to know, what are some of those qualities that might have taken you a little bit longer to acquire throughout your career that you think are important for any woman or man on this call in the aviation industry?
I think for me, it's I don't want to make this a small thing, but public speaking, kind of being out there. I remember I would work very hard to come up with a successful project, and then I'd give it to someone else to present, because I didn't want to be the one that presented it. I didn't feel I wanted to do that. So I would just tell folks to get out there and do that, and just sort of practice your being out there and having a high profile. I always had an office kind of in the hallway. I was always the woman behind the scenes making things happen, and which was fine, but it didn't have to be. And as I said before, once I was forced, and I was forced to be to be out there and to speak in public, I found out, gee, it wasn't so bad after all. And even if you have failures, and then this is another thing I have to tell people: you can have failures, but if they don't take you out and shoot you, you can recover. I've had times when I've lost my voice, just being so nervous, or times when one time the first time I was using a PowerPoint by myself, And I got out of, I lost my place. I forgot to advance the PowerPoint, and then trying to fix that. I lost my place in the text, and it was a disaster. I mean, it was just terrible. And, somehow the next day I got up and everything was fine. The sun rose and, but night fell and, life was normal. So I guess that's the other thing. You're so afraid of making a mistake or failing. And it turns out that most of the time it doesn't really matter that much.
Agreed. Agreed with you on the public speaking. I was never good at that. I'm not still to this day. I dread it. I worry about it all night. I think I didn't sleep last night worrying about this thing today. Like it's just who I am.
But look how good you are at it.
No. But it's just who I am. And so I worry too much, right? I take this stuff and it's in my brain constantly about like a problem. And I'm with you, Angela. There's times in my career where I'm like, oh, like every day I'm getting fired. That's a good day when I get to go home. I'm like, I just assume I'm getting fired. And that was sort of how in my brain, like this is the worst thing that ever happened. And then a day later, it's like, what? And you're like, okay, why did I lose a night of sleep over that? And so, yes, learning to compartmentalize things and leave space for yourself in your brain every day and your family is critical, because this too shall pass. And I'm so easy to give advice like that and never take it, because I will go home tonight and be like, oh my gosh, I got to. But it is important. It is absolutely important for those around you that you love, because you can't help anybody if you're not the right place yourself. And so, that taking a little bit of time for yourself and your family and letting it go for a minute, you have to do. And that's something that it's taken me a long time to get there. I'm better, I'll say. And COVID sort of made us that way, right? Because things got, you spent more time with your family than we ever have, right? Normally you're working every day, and it's just like, you see for a few hours at night and that's it. But COVID really opened the eyes, I think, to folks about, like, I've had friends tell me, like, I've never had so many home cooked meals. I've never spent so much time with my children, sitting at a dinner table and talking to them. That's critical. And so if anything good came of this last year, I hope it all taught us, like, that we really need to make sure that we're taking care of the most important things in our lives, which is our family, and putting them, and yourself and your well-being. And you then can contribute to others in society in a much better way. And so, yeah, it took me a while to get there. And again, I'm good at giving the advice, not good at taking it from myself.
That's so key. And it's crazy because, people always talk about millennials, which, by the way, we're in a generation, there's different generations. The millennials, we are, we're at that age now where we're in our 30s. Some of us are getting towards our 40s, and, we've always talked about balance, right? And you guys just talked about the sacrifices that you've made over the years, which we're no strangers to sacrifice, but Jamie, you hit the nail on the head. COVID has really opened up our eyes, right? Angela, whether it was you like to travel, right? You love to travel and you haven't been able to travel, or you're able to spend time with your family now, and finding that balance. So my question for you guys is as, we talk about, we're towards the end of the pandemic at this point, but as we get into our new normal, what does that balancing act look like for you guys going forward?
Well, I'm retired, so I no longer have to balance. So it's it would be unfair for me to answer that question. So I'm going to turn it to Jamie.
Well, and I think that one thing is that we've learned to adapt, and I think it's possible that you don't have to be sitting in front of your computer constantly, like, it's mobile, you take it. We've all learned, like, Zoom, who in the world would have ever thought that this would be possible? But guess what? We've found, like, through our webinars and things of educating especially the minority and the women-owned business community, of things here, that we get so many more people than doing a live event in-person event, because people had to pick and say, am I going to do that one or this one? Well, if I can spend a half hour on that one or have 2 devices running, I get to do both. So look, we have really found greater participation and meeting people where they are, which is they're at home with their family. So we don't want them to miss out on an opportunity. So using these platforms and taking what we can from this pandemic and the creativity and the adaptivity that we actually have still a lot of folks that are teleworking. We never shut down here at the airport, but we do have a lot of folks that are teleworking, and that's okay. It's possible. Like there, it is. So just looking at roles in a different lens, and we are very fortunate. Again, Mayor Lightfoot and our CDPH, Dr. Arwady here in Chicago, have been just absolutely critical to the success of Chicago, navigating the pandemic, and the clear guidance and communication. Because I think that that's one thing that we all agree with all of the nonsense that's out there in the sphere, that good communication from a trusted source that you can rely on is critical. So that's that communication, and using technology to spread the information out to everyone. It's something that will live, I think, on throughout the next several years, and hopefully even get better.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've been able to attend more events virtually now because I don't have to fly there, or there's one at 1 o'clock and there's one at 2 o'clock, and I don't have to pick which one because I can attend both. But Angela, you're not going to get off that easy. You are in the ultimate balancing act now. You have paid your dues, and now you are truly enjoying the fruits of your labor. So, I have some time, but tell me, what does retirement look like? How are you enjoying and truly appreciating that balance of where you are now?
Well, ironically, I brought my parents down from New York. They're very old, and so I'm kind of their primary caretaker. So that's the balance that I'm now dealing with, taking care of them. As you heard from the bio, I'm on a couple of boards, so I'm still engaged in the industry. So I am still having to balance. The fact that I can't travel or haven't been able to travel has kind of been a blessing, because I can take care of them and still do what I have to do. It's going to be interesting as we come out of this, how I'm going to continue that balance, because I will have to make some trips. But the wider family is also helping out. So the extended family, you start leaning on the extended family.
Definitely. I think so. We have a couple questions, and I may be jumping in on what Anthony was about to do, but we do have a couple questions. Mostly everyone is just singing you guys' praises. Angela, Shanae wants to know, how can she connect with you? She would love to have you as part of her professional tribe. Jamie, she found you on LinkedIn and she absolutely loves your energy. Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. Shanae, you got that? Angela's also on LinkedIn.
I actually am not. I think that's a very old thing. I don't do much social media at all. But I did put my emails here that you're more than welcome to email me. So I put that in the chat for everyone.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because Shanae would be messaging you.
I wouldn't know how to log on to that account if somebody tried to pay me.
So Shanae, Jamie's information is in the chat for you to be able to reach out. Edwin said, excellent discussion, especially on your experiences in saying yes and diving in head first. Legends and Leapers, what trends in technology and airport development are exciting to see emerge. Okay, hold on, I'm finding the question. What trends, there we go, there was a comma there, sorry guys. What trends in technology and airport development are exciting to see emerge? Are you excited to see emerge in the next 2 to 3 years? Reading is essential.
Well, I think a couple of things. One, sort of the touchlessness that is already starting to emerge, and that will, I think, accelerate the use of digitalization in the airport journey. and more sharing of information. I think it finally will dawn on all the parties that they need to share information in order to make this thing work. Costs are going to have to be taken out of the system. Everyone is in a big squeeze financially, and that's going to last for quite some time. So we don't have the luxury anymore of all of these silos, both within the airport management, but also most importantly, within the airport community. The technology is there to allow for sharing of information without, without sort of giving it up. And that's going to have to happen. Airport collaborative decision-making has got to be the norm. Airport operations centers have got to be the norm in order to give to have a resilient operation. This has certainly taught us that resilience is is the key. This is not the last thing that's going to happen. Hopefully it's the worst thing that will ever happen, but it's not the last thing that will ever happen. So I think those objectives will start to converge and be more widely accepted throughout the airport community.
Absolutely agree 100%. And for technology, the touchless, I think that it's going to provide an opportunity for the next generation of small businesses to be providing these types of services at the airport. So a lot of really smart entrepreneurs out there that are coming up with all kinds of apps and coming up with how to crunch that data and how to the touchless options and biometrics and all of that good stuff. Those are huge opportunities. And I see contracts, right? I see who's going to be the next person to be bringing the solutions to the airports and the aviation industry. And so making sure that we are addressing the barriers of entry that we know are there. It's expensive to do business in the airports, and that's going to stay for the foreseeable future. I mean, it is, what this industry went through, it's just incredible. And if it weren't for our legislators and with the federal aid that they provided to our airports, I mean, I don't know where this country would be. I really looking up to Canada, I really feel sorry for those folks that they haven't had that same type of support from the federal government, and recognizing the importance of the small diverse concessionaires that populate our airports and the lifeblood that they are to our communities, providing jobs and employee opportunities, really working with them to again address the next emerging technologies that are going to be coming. That's very exciting to me. And we're always open to that. We actually issued, in the middle of the pandemic, we issued an RFP to that end and got a lot of small businesses. And that's where we go to, right? That's our bread and butter, is the small businesses that make up our airports, and want to make sure that we are keeping the folks that are there, making sure that they have that to sustain and grow. And through the packages, we were one of the first airports under the leadership of Mayor Lightfoot to take some of our CARES Act money and actually develop a concessions relief program way back in April, May of last year. And then I'm very happy to see that the federal government, through the December package and this most recent one, acknowledge the importance that they play in our airport. We're going to continue working on those issues for sure.
Well, at this time, we're just about at the top of the hour, a little after the hour, actually. And I just want to take this time. Thank you for your questions and responses that came in. Thank you to our moderators, Inez and Lauryn, for guiding today's conversation. And of course, thank you to Jamie, Rhee, and Angela Gittins for your leadership and very inspiring words. Thank you to our attendees for joining and engaging with us. We invite you to join us for next month's Legends and Leapers program on the last Wednesday, April 28th at 2 p.m. And you can register for that program on our website. Again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bridget may get mad at you. She said, don't forget that today is the last day to nominate a candidate to serve on the AMAC board. So there's some announcements going. Are we going to do a little bit of an after show? Because I have all the questions at this point. Carol Ann, you're welcome, Bridget. Carol Ann had a great comment that sparked a question to me. She said that she truly appreciated and enjoyed all the speakers. And she said, keep on sending the elevator back down. Now, when she said that, I immediately said, aha, how are you guys sending the elevator back down? Because you guys, you're like, I don't know if you guys have seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and the elevator keeps going. Like, that's where you guys are at. You guys are in the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory elevator right now. How are you sending the elevator back down for the Inezes and the Lauryn Mangum Rhees that are coming up and aspire to do the amazing things that you guys have done as legends?
Well, actually, I'm on a committee of AMAC right now on that very topic about sending that elevator down and sending it up as well. So that's part of what I'm doing.
Awesome.
And I'll say for here in Chicago, one thing we've recognized, and we've teamed up with some really dynamic individuals here, like Tamara Holmes from Aerostar, of getting this curriculum into the schools at kindergarten. I want them to be designing terminals by the time they graduate high school. Like, that is where we are focusing a ton of energy, working with the First Lady here in Chicago, of looking at our city colleges and looking at our CPS. And we have 50,000 people between the two airports that are badged. There's opportunities, and we want to make sure that these kids that are in Chicago know that these opportunities exist. And the only way you do that is start feeding that curriculum into the schools. And so that has been a big, we were really making a lot of progress on that right before the pandemic hit. And then obviously with schools and everything else, but we've started that back up. And so we're very, very excited about the possibilities there of cultivating those young minds and showing them what's possible. And, if we can get, a dozen architects or, a dozen engineers or small business owners to come out and say, that's what I want to do. By the time you've got that, and you're still in high school, God bless. I mean, that's where we need to be focused, is on those next emerging leaders.
No, that's spot on. And Angela didn't want to totally say it with the committee that she's on, but that's something that emerging leaders, the Airport Leadership Collective, there's several committees within AMAC and also within other organizations throughout our industry. That's, Jamie, you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said, and Angela, you did too. Within our one industry, there are so many micro industries, right? Like, you could pretty much have any type of background and you can find a place within aviation. I mean, whether that's sustainability,
Right.
whether that's construction, whether that is green energy, like, you name it, there's a place for you within our industry. And so to be able to get that word out and to let our youth and younger generations know as early as possible that, hey, this is a possibility and this is something for you, especially in a time where, like Angela mentioned, employment it's a struggle right now. And it's probably going to get even worse as, the world starts to open back up because there's so many people looking for jobs. So, as these graduates, because college hasn't stopped, as these graduates are graduating, understanding that there is a place for you within the aviation industry, regardless of what your degree was in, we have a spot for you. So to be able to get that word out truly is a phenomenal way to keep the elevator going in both directions.
Indeed.
And I had a question too that I wanted to wait for the after show, but since it is the last day of Women's Month, throughout your career, have you two, I know you have, but when you have experienced discrimination or gender role bias, how did you go about handling that in your journey, in your career?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Different ways at different times. I mean, sometimes you shoot right back. I'm a New York City girl, and sometimes I really act like it, right? And it makes you very sorry you did that. But sometimes I just absorb it. There's an old saying that everything really important in your life you learned in kindergarten. And part of what you learn in kindergarten is how to fit in. So sometimes you just fit in, you kind of, you wait for an opportunity to, sort of to get your revenge if that's what you want, or just let it go and keep moving forward. So it does depend. I think you don't want to always just let it go. but you also don't always want to just scratch your eyes out. So you kind of have to have some judgment about that.
Agree with Angela 100%. It's been just very situational for me, but as most people tell me, I need to come out of my shell. Hardly. So yeah, I'm a known, like, if people just know. So I honestly, I will just say it, and I seriously mean it. You know, I've never really felt that Chicago has been such a welcoming place for women, and for everyone. And so I, you know, but I have had challenges. And again, I don't think you can be one way all the time. I think Angela's right. You know, you can read into things if you want, and then that doesn't get you where you really have to look at what you need for yourself and what you're trying to accomplish, and how does whatever just happened, does that help or really hurt, or what could it do long term? To never just always let it go either, right? I mean, that's absolute. And I think you can approach it in a more subtle ways than sometimes just direct, to get your point across. And if it happens again, then you might have a problem. But a lot of times what I've found is, you know, just I don't play. So that's enough said. And then we don't have a problem, do we? Right? We don't want one.
I love that.
Don't start nothing, won't be nothing.
Amen. That's right. That is right.
So I'm glad that you kept that question for the after show, because Angela got real New York on us really quick. She came back, and it was the Angela that we've seen for the past hour. So being from Detroit, I appreciated that, you know, you can take the girl out of New York, but you can't take the girl. And then Jamie, you know, as bubbly as Jamie is, Jamie got a little extra at the end. I got it. So I'm glad that you guys can apply that balance. It's definitely something that I've struggled with, to be completely honest. I've struggled with navigating corporate America, right? And understanding that not every situation needs the same approach, or the same Lauryn, right? Because I think that we do a great job in the industry, or just in corporate America as a whole, making sure we're fitting where we need to fit in with that particular time. So I truly appreciated seeing just a little bit of the gangster come out, because I was like, okay, I'm normal.
It's in there.
Well, you know, because women, they'll say, you know, if a man does it, it's aggressive, but if we do it, you know, we're bossy. And so it's just, you're right. It's finding that balance and knowing when to pull out the right tools. So
I remember one time when I was in San Francisco, and I can't remember what the situation was, but I was very annoyed by something that the chairman, who's this old guy, you know, very influential and political, and he said something that just got me. And so the meeting was over, and they set up on a dais, and I came around to him, you know, went up the little steps and he jumped, and I was furious. Like, you think I would hit an old man like you? But he saw the New York City girl coming, and he was terrified. Little old me.
You're like, I wouldn't hit you, but remember how you just reacted.
Remember, it ain't out of the realm of possibility.
That's right.
love need it.
Bridget said that women are professional code switchers, and
That's
I
true.
couldn't agree more. I had a moment like that once too, and you know, you have those days where you're like, if one more person says something to me, and Detroit came out for a moment, and then I realized, I said, did people see that? Did I do that out loud? Let me bring it back.
Well, I tell you, as an executive, sometimes I've told people, I said, you know, this is not the day to get on my bad side. And you know, or my assistant will say, okay, leave her alone today, because she's not having it. So yeah, we're allowed.
So do you guys have I think it was Charmaina. Yeah, Charmaina, because Charmaina's originally from Philly. So Charmaina says you don't want Maina from Philly to come out because that's what Shakara named it. So do you guys have your Chi-Town, your New York alter ego where it's like you don't want so-and-so to come out because when so-and-so comes out, it's gonna be problems?
Well, I used to. I didn't do this on purpose, but others noticed when I would put my hands on my hip and they would say, "Uh-oh, those hands are going to the hip." Everyone look out.
So that's when Angie, when Angie from the block comes out, it's when the hands go on the
Well, I'll tell you, God blessed me with ADD because I deal with it right now head on, and then I forget about it. And so that is a blessing. So people like, are you still upset about what? About what? No, I would have dealt with it back there if I was upset, because that is one thing that I have gotten real good at in my life is like, I see something, I say something right now, because I'm not going to stew about it. I ain't going to let it fester. I'm not going to read into it and whatever. If there's something, I will deal with it head on, and then we're okay. We can keep going. I mean, I'm not one to hold grudges or anything like that, which is great. Not everybody in my family is like that, but I will say I've been blessed with that. And so, it just, you deal with it right there and then move on. But oh yeah, Chi-Town Jamie, she's there.
That's something you learned over time, Jamie. I was going to ask about feedback that you've received, and I used to work in finance in New York, actually, Angela, at JP Morgan. And I'll never forget my year-end review. The feedback I got was, Inez, you just have to take the emotion out of your work. And that's been, as a woman, I was like, well, is it just because I'm a nurturer or I'm an emotional person? I'm a Pisces. I don't know what it is.
Pisces.
Yeah. But I was like, I don't know why. I never received that feedback. And I often hear that with some of my other women friends, that they're told that they can get too emotional. And so how can they learn to remove emotion out of their work?
I don't know that it's to remove emotion. It's that since it's male perception, it's almost frightening to males when a woman gets emotional. I mean, men get emotional all the time.
and easier.
But that's acceptable to them because they're used to that, and that's part of who they are as well. So I mean, I don't know that I actually have advice. I'm going back to kindergarten about fitting in. And at a certain point in your career, you have to fit in, or you want to fit in. Later on, you don't have to fit in. I don't fit in anymore. But at a certain point, you're not in the power situation. And if you're getting that kind of feedback, then you have to pay attention to it. And then once you know that, you sort of, have a mirror, or a person, could be your own mirror, or a friend, or particularly a male. I mean, it's really helpful to have male mentors with respect to that, because they can give you feedback as to what males are perceiving you as, and it's very helpful. It's annoying, but it's helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I think emotion's important, and it's what makes women, I think, such incredible leaders, because we do look at the other side. It's not always just this or that, right? It's you come at it in a different angle with compassion. You ask different questions, and if that's emotion, well, then God bless, give it to me, because that's, I think, why women are good at being managers. And sometimes some men are, and I'm not going to say it because I've had my fair share of really good bosses that were men. I mean, honestly, that wanted to go make sure that we were included in all the conversations, and went above and beyond. But it goes back to that, maybe it's all very situational to me, and it all is going to depend on the motives and where people are coming from and the history that you have with these folks. And that, to me, adapting to be able to know your audience and know what's important to them, know the things like if, and is this still being recorded?
Yeah.
The after thing? Okay. Well, that's okay anyway. Look, I've been called honey. I've been called it all, right? Sweetie pie. And boy, and 15 years ago, I mean, honestly, that was just the way things were done. And it was not meant in a bad way. So I had to realize, like, this man that was calling me that was not doing it to offend me or to belittle me. It was a term of endearment for him. And so I knew that. But if it was somebody else like, hey, sweetie, I'd be like, well, really? Who are you calling sweetie? So like that, again, know the situation and adequately prepare yourself for that.
And also take advantage of, one of the things, as Jamie said about women, is that we tend to be more adaptable because typically we have to be in our lives dealing with husbands and boyfriends and children and all of that. So when you talk about emotion and taking emotion out of your voice, it's not that you don't feel the emotion, but act. Be female and be devious, and think of it as your strategy and your tactics for dealing with these idiots, and just sort of think of it that way. They say in public speaking to be less nervous, imagine your audience is naked, which is just imagining that your audience is sort of in a lesser position than you are. And so, it's almost doing the same kind of thing. It's not putting yourself down. It's almost putting them down and saying, okay, in order to deal with these folks, I'm going to do this. I'm going to manipulate them. And in manipulating them, I will, in this particular case, take the emotion out of my voice, whatever the hell that means.
That's good.
So it puts you back in charge. You always want to see yourself in control, even though you're not in a power position. But manipulation is one way of gaining power. This is not always being recorded. I didn't mean that.
That's how you know the difference between Jamie is still gainfully employed with the city of Chicago. Angela's like, these idiots. That's how you know she's retired.
I'm gonna start naming names.
So it's so funny because Charmaine has to always tell me, Lauryn, it's being recorded. I'm like, dang nabbit, why didn't you say that before? I'm still early in my career, Charmaine. We can't have a recorded mess it all up. So I know we're about to close out. We still got quite a few people still hanging on with us. So I want to jump back. We were talking about family and we were talking about kind of just the roles changing. And so I got married in December, right? And
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So love my husband to death. And we do a phenomenal job of not necessarily like having quote unquote defined gender roles in our house, right? Like I'm not a clean person. He is the one that cleans, right? I cook. Like we have a really good balance. And it's one of the things that he said since we started dating some time ago is like, I can't wait till you make it big so I can be a stay-at-home dog dad or a stay-at-home dad. So what are you guys' thoughts on women as we are being one of the top as far as education, as far as employment, and really working our way up in not only corporate America, but also entrepreneurship? Women are just killing it in entrepreneurship. What are your thoughts on those kind of gender roles changing as far as the family dynamic is concerned? And what does that look like going forward?
Well, listen, if I had someone who wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, I would have gotten married. I would have loved that. Because I often said, it's, with the challenges of, high pressure jobs, I need a wife. You need someone behind you that's taking care, who's administering your domestic duties. And that's an advantage men have because they have that. Even if the woman is working, she's still doing it. So yeah, hang on to him.
Oh yeah, he's not going anywhere. He's stuck with me. No, but you and you said it. And there's so many. Angela, like it's becoming more and more the norm, especially as we're getting to a point where women are now in their 30s, 40s, either deciding to not have kids or to not get married or to wait longer to have kids, because it's like, I can't find anyone as I'm growing in my positions of power that is okay with my positions of power, is okay with me putting my profession higher on the totem pole or the chart than other things. And that's really, I see it a lot with my friends, right? Is that seems to be a really big issue, is finding spouses or significant others that are willing to be a teammate.
Well, men have to adapt. I mean, they just have to adapt to that reality. And, to the extent that they do, I think we'll all be better off.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm blessed. My
But
husband
I think at this point,
go ahead.
no, that's okay. Now, I was just saying that at this point, it's men who have to start doing some adaptation.
I am blessed. I found my soulmate. And people that don't know this, we met on a Friday and we're engaged the following Saturday. So we were married 6 weeks later, and it'll be 8 years this year.
Wow.
And he is my soulmate. I just adore him. He put his career on hold with the pandemic and stayed home with our daughter because he had to. And he just returned to work here a month ago now. But you're right. Men have to start realizing, and society has to not penalize them for that either. Right. I mean, I think a lot of men look down on those guys, and that's wrong. Right. It's, again, if we as women want to be considered equals and we want to make sure that we are paid the same, that we have the same access to opportunities, then we can't penalize a man for traditionally taking a role that needs to be done. And when the daycare closed, the schools were shut down, guess what? Somebody had to stay with our daughter. And my husband and I, when he immediately just said, no, I will do it. And did an amazing job that, for which I'm going to eternally be grateful. He's been a great partner. But a lot of guys, when they're like, when are you going to go back to work or whatever, they just, it literally, that there's as much on that side that needs to be done. Men need to kind of adapt to that and learn that is okay too. So I'm blessed.
That's awesome. No, I think the societal norms, we have a long way to go with a lot of things, right? As far as our country is concerned, and the equal playing field. So I think, Angela, you said it, like, women, we want to be equal, but that also means that men have to be okay with us being equal as well. Because that changes the way societal norms play out, right? So I think that both of you guys had some phenomenal points. We are hitting 30 minutes over. We appreciate it. A lot of people stayed with us. I mean, I love the actual conversation, because we get to, get into the nitty gritty and really talk about stuff. And Angela calls people idiots. I mean, it's amazing. But I want to just thank you both so much. I can't wait till the world opens back up and we can go to conferences and I can literally just love on both of you. When I see you in person, Angela, I don't care if you're retired, you are doing enough going on in the industry.
Amazing.
You are not going anywhere, darling. But I truly appreciate both of you. You two are absolutely phenomenal women. And just being on this call with you the past hour and a half, I've learned so much. I've taken away so much from both of you equally. And now I understand why everyone started jumping into the chat early on. Just literally, if you guys don't get a chance to check it out, people were just singing your praises. I mean, somebody went back all of the years that they've known Jamie, and someone went back to all of the time that they've known Angela, and just talking about how you two truly are legends. And I couldn't have thought, but we couldn't have come up with a better set of legends to end out Women's History Month. And I thank both of you so much. I also want to thank my co-moderator, Inez, in her beautiful custom closet. I wanted her to move the camera just a little bit so I could see the shoes that were hanging that are so neatly placed. First off, I'm just proud of you for keeping your closet so organized, because it looks amazing.
There you go. Yes, indeed. I'm moving in.
Right? I
am moving in.
That's goals, right? Where's your office at? Oh, it's in my closet.
All done right here.
She can get away from all the boys in her house. That truly is a Carrie Bradshaw oasis. But in all seriousness, thank you all so much. Thank you for being the phenomenal and just courageous and amazing women that you are. And again, I wouldn't have wanted to been on a panel or on Legends and Leapers with a better crew than you guys. And I'm sure we could sit here and talk for another 30 minutes because we didn't even talk about Giselle. I'm sure we could sit here and talk for another 30 minutes, but thank you all so much that tuned in and stayed with us for the after show, the extra 30 minutes. Just a quick recap. We are taking nominations for board positions. Today is the last day. Also Catalyst Awards, please nominate those individuals. We are putting together a phenomenal virtual summit conference for the AMAC conference this year. And we're super excited to see everyone virtually in June, hosted by Atlanta with a Chicago. Hey, Jamie.
Next year.
Preview next year. Yep. So Atlanta is definitely going to be showing up and showing out. So Chicago, you guys better come with
Bring it.
Okay, because they are not playing. And if you guys, two of the things that Angela and Jamie said was saying yes to opportunities and getting involved and networking, right? And AMAC has some phenomenal steering groups, some phenomenal committees. If you are looking to get more involved in the industry, whether you're a legend, retired or not, like Angela, or even a leaper, and you just want to get more involved, please do so. I mean, Angela, you guys have heard from her, and she's still giving back. So phenomenal way to get involved within the industry and really get your footing with AMAC. So thank you all so much. Appreciate you. Sending you nothing but blessings, light, love. Hope you all stay safe, and happy early Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Thank you for having me. And thank you, AMAC, for all that you guys do. You guys do God's work. So thank you for all the support that you give us and all that you do and these Legends and Leapers. It's just been an honor to be with you, Angela. You are a legend. I your name when I saw it, I again, that's probably why I didn't sleep last night, because I was just like, oh my gosh, to me, and you were amazing. So thank you for all that you've done for the industry.
Thank you. And I think both of us can say we expect Lauryn and Inez to be legends.
Indeed.
Seeing you on the other side of this. Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Side note, I don't know what either of you were talking about. You were talking about saying yes to opportunities, but neither of you wanted to public speak. And I'm sitting back and I'm cracking up because we're here, right?
Here we are. Indeed.
So thank you all so much for saying yes to this opportunity and being, both of you, phenomenal public speakers, because there's no way you could get as far as you have without that amazing training tool. So thank you guys so much, and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe.